Shabbat Shalom. In this week's parasha, we're introduced, Parashat Shemot, to Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest leader, the greatest prophet ever to serve the Jewish people. And, of course, the selection of Moshe Rabbeinu and the beginning of his journey as the leader of the Israelite nation becomes a chance for Mefarshim, Midrashim, and all of us to explore questions related to what makes Moshe such a qualified leader, and what lessons about leadership can we learn from Moshe's behavior. A perhaps startling idea about leadership, and one which should give us a certain amount of pause, comes from a midrashic collection called Lekach Tov from 11th century Italy. Lekach Tov quotes the following midrash about Moshe's encounter at the burning bush, the Sneh. The pasuk reads that God's first instruction to Moshe when he arrives at the burning bush is Shal ne'alecha me'al raglecha, remove your shoes from your feet. That Moshe is supposed to remove his shoes, presumably a sign of humility, a sign of recognition of the sanctity of the location. And this is contrasted or compared in the Midrash, surprisingly perhaps to those of us who are less familiar with the Nevi'im, to a similar episode that happens with Moshe's successor, Yehoshua, in Yehoshua Perek Hey. And when Yehoshua encounters an angelic being, the angel tells Yehoshua, Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Notice the subtle difference in the vocalization, the vowels of the two words. When Moshe is instructed by God at the burning bush to remove his shoes, it's na'alecha, his shoes, plural, spelled nun, ayin, lamed, yud, kaf. And when Yehoshua is told to remove his shoe by the angel, it's na'alecha, nun, ayin, lamed, kaf. Now, Mefarshim who are more interested in the pshat interpretation would not pick up on such a subtlety, and instead would say, okay, they're each told to remove their shoes, regardless of the exact precision of the grammatical number of shoes. However, the Midrash here contrasts Moshe and Yehoshua, and assigns to the two shoes that Moshe has to remove, rather than Yehoshua's only one, a significance. The Midrash says, Lefi sheMoshe Rabbeinu lo zacha b'shnei dvarim. Moshe had to sacrifice, Moshe had to give up on two things in order to serve as the leader of the Jewish people throughout the period of Yetziat Mitzrayim and the 40 years in the desert. What were those two things? B'knisat haaretz, entering into the land of Israel. We know Moshe's perhaps greatest tragedy and loss is his unfulfilled desire to enter the land of Israel, recounted especially at the beginning of Parashat Vayetchanan, and velo sheyamdu banav tachtav, that his sons would not fill his role after him, or that he would not have a biological successor. Instead, his intellectual successor, his spiritual heir, was Yehoshua, his student. And here, the Midrash Lekach Tov is pointing to the fact that Moshe's greatness in leadership, Moshe's greatness in prophecy, Moshe as the great teacher of the Israelite nation, the leader who took us out of slavery in Egypt, who brought us to Har Sinai, we received the Torah, Moshe who taught and guided the Bnei Israel for 40 years in the desert and finally passes the reins to Yehoshua, actually had to sacrifice two very important things that he was hoping for in his life. One, to finally enter the land of Israel. So much written about that. Masechet Sotah and many other midrashim discuss that. And that Moshe, although he had, of course, Yehoshua, he did not have a biological heir to serve as his successor in his role as the leader of the Jewish people. And here, I think there's something to think about more broadly. Yes, we hold leaders up on a certain kind of pedestal. Yes, we think leadership is an excellent quality and something that we idealize and encourage. At the same time, to adopt a position of leadership comes with sacrifices, comes at a cost, often to dreams unfulfilled, often to a person's family life. And those are serious calculations that we have to take into account, and we have to make sure we're making the right decisions. Shabbat Shalom.